West FM, Radio Mayak, the Valdai Discussion Club, you said that one of the countries is preparing for the nuclear tests. Is this country the US? And you said that Russia would follow the suit and will also have nuclear tests. Won't it bring us back to the previous century when the world put a ban on nuclear tests, and could it provoke a new nuclear arms race? Well, to be fair, the race is still ongoing. Will it bring us back to some previous times? Well, I did not say that the United States were preparing for the tests. I said some countries were preparing, and specialists, they understand everything perfectly, because everyone is eager to test the efficiency of the fuel that for years were in the missiles. So you can emulate this on computers, and some specialists think that that's enough, but other specialists believe that some actual tests need to be carried out. And some countries, they float these ideas. From what we know, they even prepare for this. And that's why I said that if they have the tests, we will do the same. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? From the point of view of ensuring security, it is a good thing. From the point of view of overall picture, bigger picture, related to the deterrence, with actions aimed at, well, if not at reduction, but at least at deterring the arms race. And maybe bad, but in this context, so the START treaty must be extended, so it's something to think of. So without any further ado, without any opening remarks, if you have any questions, I'd be delighted to take them. Mr. President, good afternoon. Anastasia Savani, TASS Agency. You've spent 3 days here in Dushanbe, and more than half of this time it was your official visit to Tajikistan. You spent many hours talking with your counterpart, Mamali Rahman, both in person and in a wider format with your delegations, which means there is a lot of interest. The size of your delegation is an evidence to that. So what are the areas that are being developed, and what are the prospects in these relations? And a follow-up question about this: we signed a labor migration development program with Tajikistan. Internal Affairs ministries opened their offices both in Russia and in Tajikistan. Do you think it helps smooth out the migration flows? Will it help minimize the illegal migration, reduce illegal migration and crime? And are we planning to have similar programs with other regions? I will start with the bilateral relations. Tajikistan is an important partner for us overall and in Central Asia, and its importance is that it's a border state of the CIS, and despite the fact that we don't have a common border, it's very important both for the security of the Russian Federation and because we have our border officers serving there. And we maintain close contact with our colleagues, and we have our military base. So that's one. And of course, we spend a lot of time discussing these matters, and we can see that the current authorities in Afghanistan are trying everything, doing everything to normalize the situation in the country, but nevertheless, there are a lot of problems there still. And Afghan authorities, they recognize it, they acknowledge it. So at this border between Tajikistan and Afghanistan, we need everything to be very secure. And secondly, we have also very active economic cooperation. Suffice it to say that we cooperate in the field of energy and hydropower generation. Tajikistan is one of the biggest clusters of this particular type of power generation. There are mountainous rivers, and you are well aware of all the projects that we are involved with. Some projects have already been implemented, some are quite promising to be implemented. There are some other areas as well, including the minerals, and it's very interesting for our economy, and the interest is mutual, both for the Russian economy and Tajik economy. And we have joint enterprises, we continue to make investments, Russian businesses make investment, and the competitive edge in Tajikistan, for example, is in cotton production, so for us it's important, it has significance. And of course, another important area of cooperation is the humanitarian cooperation. So the president of Tajikistan came up with this initiative to establish schools where they don't just study Russian language, but where the entire curriculum is in Russian, very close, very similar to our curriculum. We have a lot of our teachers working here, and obviously we will continue to enhance this activity to launch more branches of the Russian universities, and we will support younger people from Tajikistan to come and study at the Russian universities. One of the biggest, maybe even the biggest quota is for the Tajikistan's students. And everyone is well aware, but nevertheless, I will say it again, in Tajikistan, they attach a special significance to learning Russian language and Russian culture, I mean, theater and so on. But the most important thing is that the status of the Russian language is enshrined in its constitution, in law. And it is very important. It's a foundation for the further development of our interstate ties. As for the migration, of course, we understand what's happening in the Central Asian republics, what's happening with their demography. Just recently, just a few years ago, it was 5-something million people. Now it's more than 10 million people. So the demographic growth is really rapid here. And Russia is interested, of course, in workforce, but at the same time, we would like to see this workforce that we require. Secondly, people should have normal or good living conditions, and we need them to adhere to our laws, to our rules. They need to be law-abiding citizens, and it has to do with language learning as well. Nevertheless, there are a lot of issues, and citizens of the Russian Federation, so they also point out these issues, and first of all, we need to think about our citizens, and in this regard, it is very important to ensure that the officials from various agencies, including the Interior Ministry, work in Tajikistan, same as their Tajik counterparts work in Russia. It is important. Why? Because they, as lawful representatives of the Tajik authorities, they will see with their own eyes what's happening in Russia. And secondly, they will be part of the decision-making process along with their Russian counterparts. And those Tajikistani nationals, they will regard it in a very different way. It's one thing if the police, our police wants them to follow or adhere to some laws, but it would be an absolutely different thing if the Tajikistani law enforcers will be part of this process, or this procedure. It will make the entire thing much more efficient. Mr. President, good afternoon. Российская Gazeta newspaper. 2 large-scale summits were held, a CIS summit and yesterday Russia-Central Asia summit. So how successful were they? And Russia-Central Asia's format, How necessary is it? So what does it do? You know, when the Soviet Union was dismantled and they announced the establishment of the CIS, I think the vast majority of our people didn't really understand what was going on. Okay, it was the USSR, now it's CIS. Everyone thought that nothing would change, but everything changed drastically. Unfortunately, the people in our country was not really informed about what happened then, but nevertheless, we inherited this reality now, and we have to live in this reality, and we need to think about how we can make this space better, how we can progress, and how we can maintain the competitive edge that we have after we established unified logistics, unified cooperation and industry across the entire Soviet space. And we have a similar cultural code despite the diversity of cultures and ethnicities across the former Soviet Union. And the CIS is trying to preserve all of that. At a certain point, it became clear that the level of cooperation, level of interaction within the CIS to resolve the complex economic issues was not enough. So at the initiative of Kazakhstan, at the initiative of President Nazarbayev back then, another organization was established, Eurasian Economic Union, where we planned a deeper cooperation between the countries who deemed it useful and necessary to establish such an organization. But the CIS is still as important, and its point is in maintaining this common space, including the humanitarian space. Because the peoples of the former Soviet Union, they did not have that many cultural differences, and there was a common ethical code, a common moral code of a Soviet citizen, and it's important. And maintaining, preserving everything that we inherited from the Soviet Union, that's what the CIS is doing. And I believe it's doing fine. It's successful. We maintain people-to-people contacts, quite close contacts. And we are striving to preserve this unified transport system, which is very important, and we support the Russian language as a language of international communication. It's an important part of our efforts and of preserving, maintaining the competitive edge that we have. And finally, the security matters that we need to ensure. Countering the most dangerous types of crime, for example, drug trafficking and so on. If you look at the documents that we adopted today, that we signed today, that's all there. And in the end, it means strengthening and maintaining our unity, and it is important for our future. As for the Central Asian countries, I believe it's more or less the same, but